The clinking of crystal glasses faded as every head in the restaurant turned. The once lively murmur froze, replaced by a heavy silence thick enough to taste. At the center of it all, a little girl in a lemon-yellow dress clung tightly to a teddy bear. Her tiny hands trembled as she buried her face in the shoulder of the waitress kneeling beside her. A young black woman with wide, startled eyes and a tray that had fallen to the floor. Opposite them, a man in an immaculate navy suit crouched down. His sharp jawline and slicked-back hair whispered danger. His tattoos crept above his collar like shadows that refused to fade. The room knew him. Everyone knew him. Luca Moretti, the reclusive mafia boss who hadn't been seen in public for months. Now he was face to face with the waitress his daughter had just called Mama. Gasps rippled through the elegant hall. Luca's blue eyes darted from his trembling daughter to the woman before him. Confusion, pain, and something deeper swirling within. And in that fragile silence, before anyone could speak, the girl whispered again, "Papa, please. Can she come home with us?" Before we begin, click subscribe, like this video, and comment what time it is that you're watching this video. Your support helps us bring more wonderful stories, and trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now let's begin. That night, Luca Moretti drove home through the sleeping city, Sofia dozing in the back seat. His driver, Marco, said nothing. No one ever spoke in Luca's car unless spoken to. The headlights carved through mist as they ascended toward the lake. "Boss," Marco ventured finally. "Everything all right?" Luca's eyes stayed on the road ahead. She called her Mama. Marco blinked. "The waitress?" He didn't answer, only exhaled sharply through his nose. The sound of a man haunted by something he couldn't name. When they reached the mansion, the iron gates opened automatically. The villa loomed in silence, marble, glass, and emptiness. Inside, Sofia stirred. "Papa, can the nice lady come over?" Luca paused mid-step. "Why?" She smiled. Sofia murmured sleepily. "Like Mama used to." Luca froze. He felt that ache in his chest again. The one he thought had died the day Isabella was buried. His wife's laughter had once filled these halls. Her piano still sat by the window untouched. He brushed Sofia's hair aside. "Sleep, my love." But as he tucked her into bed, her words wouldn't leave him. She smiled like Mama used to. On the other side of town, Amara sat on her small balcony with a chipped mug of tea. The scent of coffee and warm bread from the bakery below filled the night. Her roommate, Tasha, poked her head out. "You okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Amara gave a weak laugh. "Something like that. Was it another rude customer?" "No, just a man. And his little girl." Tasha raised an eyebrow. "And that's enough to throw you off all night?" Amara didn't answer immediately. "It wasn't like that. The girl, she called me Mama." Tasha's expression softened. "Oh, she was scared," Amara added quickly. "I was just trying to calm her down." Tasha nodded slowly. "Still, sounds like it hit you." Amara stared into her tea. "Yeah, it did." She didn't know why. Maybe it was the sadness in that man's eyes, a loneliness she recognized all too well. Maybe it was the child's innocence. Or maybe it was something she couldn't yet explain. Luca couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his study, surrounded by mahogany shelves and portraits that stared like silent witnesses. A half-empty glass of whiskey sat on his desk. He pulled out a photograph. Isabella holding baby Sofia, both laughing under the summer sun. He traced the outline of his late wife's smile. She had been his light, the only person who made him believe redemption was possible. When she died, the world became grayscale again. He'd promised her, in those final hospital hours, to keep Sofia safe. But what did safety mean when it came wrapped in isolation? He had turned their mansion into a fortress, guards at every gate, silence in every corridor. And somehow, his daughter was lonelier than ever. He closed his eyes, hearing again Sofia's small voice. She smiled like Mama used to. It wasn't the waitress that haunted him. It was what she represented, a warmth he'd long forgotten. 2 days later, fate intervened. At La Valura, Amara was polishing glasses when her manager, Mr. DeSantis, called her into the office. "Amara," he said with an odd smile, "you've made an impression." She blinked. "Sir, a private client requested you personally for a dinner service this Friday. Mr. Luca Moretti." Her heart nearly stopped. "What?" He insists. Said his daughter enjoyed your company. Amara shook her head. I can't. That's too much. He's a man with influence, DeSantis cut in. And generosity. He's paying triple the rate. Amara hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. Finally, she nodded slowly. All right. As she left the office, her heart raced. What could a man like that possibly want from someone like her? Friday evening arrived like a slow drumbeat. A black car picked her up from the restaurant, the driver silent but polite. When the gates of the Moretti estate opened, Amara felt her throat tighten. The mansion was larger than anything she'd ever imagined. Inside, Sophia's laughter echoed down the hallway. She ran to Amara the moment she entered. Miss Amara. Amara knelt, smiling. Hi, sweetheart. Sophia hugged her legs tightly. Papa said you were coming. I saved you a seat. Luca appeared then. The same dark suit, the same calm aura that commanded space. But tonight, his eyes looked different. Less guarded. Thank you for coming, he said quietly. Your invitation wasn't easy to ignore, she replied gently. He almost smiled. Sophia has been asking for you. Dinner was simple. Pasta, salad, and stories. For the first time, laughter filled those marble halls again. Sophia talked nonstop, her face glowing. Amara listened, laughed, and shared small stories of her own childhood. Luca watched silently, feeling something unfamiliar, peace. When dessert came, Sophia fell asleep at the table, her head resting against Amara's arm. Amara brushed the child's hair aside. She's such a bright girl. Luca's voice was quiet. Her mother used to say the same thing. Amara glanced up. His eyes met hers, open, searching, filled with years of silence. He whispered, You have a gift, Amara. I don't know what it is, but when you're here, the house feels alive again. She looked at him, the room still around them. Maybe it just needed someone to listen. He held her gaze for a long moment before nodding. That night, as Amara rode home, she stared out the window, at the moonlit lake and her reflection beside it. She didn't know what she was stepping into, only that something had shifted in both of their worlds. Rain fell softly against the windows of La Valura the following week. The silverware gleamed under candlelight, the faint hum of jazz weaving through the air. Amara moved between tables with practiced grace, but her thoughts were far away, still caught in the memory of that quiet dinner at the Moretti mansion. She'd told herself it was just another job, just another shift. But it wasn't. Something about the way Luca had looked at her that night. Not like a man interested in conquest, but like someone remembering how to breathe, had stayed with her. And the way Sophia had smiled, her laughter echoing in those lifeless halls, had imprinted itself in Amara's chest. Still, she tried to forget. People like Luca Moretti belonged to a world she wanted nothing to do with, a world of power, danger, and secrets whispered in the dark. But fate didn't ask for permission. It was Wednesday afternoon when her manager waved her over. Amara, phone for you, he said, half smirking. It's him again. Her pulse quickened. Who? Mr. Moretti. She took the phone reluctantly. Hello. Miss Johnson, came that low, smooth voice, calm, deliberate. I hope this isn't a bad time. No, not at all, sir, she said, straightening instinctively. There was a pause. She could almost hear him exhale. Sophia's been asking about you again. She refuses to eat without setting a plate for you. Amara smiled faintly despite herself. She's sweet. She's lonely, he corrected quietly. I wondered if you'd come again. As a guest this time, not staff. Just dinner. No uniform. She hesitated. I'm not sure that's appropriate. Neither am I, he admitted. But my daughter hasn't smiled like this in years. I'll have the car pick you up at 7 if you agree. Before she could find a reason to say no, the line went dead. When the black sedan arrived, Amara almost didn't step in. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe compassion, pulled her forward. This time, she wore a soft cream blouse and dark jeans. Her hair fell loosely around her shoulders, her usual waitress uniform replaced by something unassuming yet elegant. Sophia greeted her at the door, beaming. You came. Amara laughed. Of course I did. You didn't think I'd missed dinner, did you? Luca appeared a moment later, holding a glass of wine. His gaze swept over her. Not predatory, but appreciative, as though seeing color for the first time. You look, he began, then caught himself. Thank you for coming. Dinner was lighter this time. The table was smaller, set for 3. Candles flickered softly. Sophia chattered endlessly, telling stories about her school, her drawings, her teddy bear's new ear Amara had sewn for him last time. Amara laughed so freely that Luca found himself smiling, too. Not out of politeness, but instinct. It startled him, the warmth of it. When Sophia finally ran off to show Amara her toys, Luca lingered by the table, watching them disappear down the hallway. Marco, his loyal driver and longtime friend, entered quietly. Boss, you're letting her in too close. Luca didn't turn around. She's just a guest. Marco shook his head. You forget I've known you since you were 16. That's not how you look at guests. Luca exhaled. She's different. Sophia needs her. Marco hesitated. And you? Luca didn't answer. Later that night, Amara stood by the lake outside the mansion, the cool breeze rippling across the dark water. Luca joined her quietly, hands in his pockets. She likes you, he said. Amara smiled faintly. Sophia's easy to love. She used to talk to her mother's picture every night, he murmured. Now she talks about you. She turned to look at him. That must be hard. It is, he admitted. Isabella was light. She softened everything she touched. When she died, I shut the world out. I told myself it was to protect Sophia. Truth is, I was protecting myself from feeling anything again. Amara looked down at the rippling water. You can't protect a heart by locking it away, Luca. You just starve it. He glanced at her, surprised by the quiet strength in her voice. You sound like someone who's been hurt, he said. I have, she admitted softly. But hurt doesn't scare me anymore. Emptiness does. For a long while, they stood in silence, 2 broken souls watching the reflection of the moon dance across the lake. Over the next few weeks, Amara became a quiet constant in their lives. She'd visit every few days, sometimes just to read to Sophia or cook together in the kitchen. Luca found himself drifting toward the laughter echoing from those rooms. The house no longer felt like a mausoleum. Even the staff seemed to breathe easier. He'd come home from tense meetings, deals and negotiations that reminded him of the darkness he still carried, and find Amara sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, Sophia asleep against her shoulder. He'd pause at the doorway, something tender tightening in his chest. One evening, he brought her tea. You don't have to stay so late, he said quietly. Amara smiled, brushing a curl from her face. She wanted to finish her story. You could have said no. She looked up at him. I don't say no to love. That silenced him. But peace rarely lasts in the life of a man like Luca Moretti. A week later, a tabloid headline hit the morning newsstands. The king's new mistress, Mafia boss seen with mystery waitress. Paparazzi camped outside La Valura. Amara's co-workers whispered. The manager avoided eye contact. By noon, she'd been called into the office again. Amara, Mr. DeSantis began, wringing his hands. You're one of my best staff, but this publicity isn't good for the restaurant. She frowned. You believe them? It doesn't matter what I believe, he sighed. People talk. Maybe take a week off until it dies down. Humiliation burned in her throat. She grabbed her bag, nodding silently. When she got home, Tasha was waiting with the paper in hand. Amara, she said softly, you can't get involved with a man like that. I'm not involved, Amara snapped. Then quieter. I just care about his daughter. Tasha studied her. And the father? Amara hesitated. He's not what I expected. That evening, Lucas stormed into his study, slamming the newspaper onto the desk. Who leaked this? He growled. Marco frowned. Does it matter? You've been seen with her publicly twice. I told you to keep the press away from my family. Marco's eyes softened. Boss, she's not family. Luca's jaw clenched. She is to Sophia. Then make her safe, Marco said simply, before your world eats hers alive. The words struck deep. Luca picked up the paper again. Amara's photo circled in red ink, her face serene despite the chaos around her. He thought of how she'd looked laughing with Sophia, sunlight spilling through the kitchen windows. He knew what he had to do. He found her the next day sitting by the lake near the city pier, her sketchbook open. She looked up as he approached, not afraid, just tired. Did you come to apologize for the papers? she asked quietly. I came to tell you I'll fix it, he said. She sighed. You can't fix gossip, Luca. You can't control what people think. I can control what happens to you, he replied. Her eyes hardened. That's the problem. You think everything can be controlled. He looked away, jaw tight. My world doesn't forgive weakness. Anyone near me becomes a target. Amara closed her sketchbook. Then maybe your world needs to end. He stared at her, caught off guard by her bluntness. You don't understand what I've done, he said. I don't need to, she replied softly. I can see who you are when you're with your daughter. That's the man you could be, if you let yourself. For a moment, neither spoke. The breeze tugged at her hair. His shadow stretched long across the pavement. Finally, Luca said quietly, You deserve better than someone like me. She smiled sadly. Maybe, but Sophia deserves someone who remembers what love looks like. And then she turned and walked away. Luca stood there long after she was gone. The sound of the waves breaking against the pier echoing through his chest like a heartbeat he hadn't felt in years. That night, he found Sophia drawing at the table. She held up her picture proudly. 3 stick figures. Herself, her father, and Amara, all holding hands under a sun. She said she'd come back soon, right, Papa? Luca stared at the drawing. For a long moment, he couldn't speak. Then he nodded. Yes, Piccola, he whispered. She'll come back soon. But deep down, he wasn't sure he believed it. The rain had returned to the city, thin and steady, like a whisper that refused to stop. It was the kind of rain that soaked into the bones, carrying secrets with it. Luca Moretti sat alone in his office, staring at a framed photograph on the wall. Isabella, smiling under a summer sun. Her eyes looked alive, almost mocking him now. He'd spent years running empires, silencing enemies, building walls so high that even grief couldn't climb them. And then a maid had walked into his life and turned those walls into glass. He rubbed his eyes, exhausted. Marco stood in the corner, silent. She quit, Luca said finally, voice low. Marco nodded. She told the restaurant she's leaving the city. Said it was time to start fresh. Luca's hand tightened around his glass. Where? Didn't say. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The ache in his chest was foreign. Not anger, not frustration. It was loss. Real loss. Marco shifted. You could let her go. You've done it before. Luca's eyes opened slowly. That's the problem. I don't want it anymore. Across town, Amara packed her few belongings into a single suitcase. The apartment felt smaller tonight, colder. Tasha watched from the doorway. Are you sure about this? She asked softly. Amara zipped the bag closed. He's dangerous, Tasha. His world doesn't end well for people like me. You care about him. Amara froze. That's exactly why I need to leave. She sat on the bed, staring at her hands. I've spent my whole life fixing other people's chaos. My mother's debts, my father's drinking, Sophia's loneliness. But who fixes mine? Tasha joined her on the bed, quiet. You know, love doesn't always come wrapped in safety. Sometimes it comes wrapped in storms, the kind that test what's real. Amara gave a weary laugh. Then I hope this storm passes fast. She didn't know that the storm was already coming. Not from the sky, but from Luca's past. 2 nights later, La Valura was quiet after closing. Amara had returned to collect her final paycheck. The manager was counting receipts when the door swung open and 3 men entered, their coats dripping from the rain. We're closed, DeSantis said quickly. The first man smiled. Thin, sharp, cruel. We're not here for dinner. Amara froze. The logo on one man's wrist tattoo caught her eye, a red serpent coiling around a blade. Her heart dropped. Luca's rivals. Before she could move, one of them grabbed DeSantis by the collar. Where is she? The girl. The waitress that's been with Moretti. Amara's breath caught. I don't know, the manager stammered. Wrong answer. The gunshot cracked like thunder. DeSantis collapsed, his papers scattering like snow. Amara ran. She bolted through the kitchen, her shoes slipping on the wet tile. Behind her, footsteps pounded. Find her, someone shouted. The boss wants her alive. She burst out into the alley, rain soaking her hair, lungs burning. She didn't stop until she hit the street, and a black car screeched to a halt in front of her. The window rolled down. Get in, Luca barked. She hesitated for half a second, then dove in. Bullets shattered the rear window as Luca hit the gas. The sedan fishtailed before speeding into the night. Amara clutched her seatbelt, heart hammering. Who are they? People I thought were gone, Luca growled. Old enemies. I should have known they'd use you to get to me. Someone's dead, Luca, she cried. They killed Mr. DeSantis. His jaw clenched. And they'll pay for it. No, she snapped. You can't fight violence with more violence. That's what keeps you trapped. He glanced at her, her face streaked with tears and rain, fierce despite the fear. Then tell me what to do, Amara, he said hoarsely. Tell me how to protect you without becoming the monster I've always been. She didn't answer. The city lights blurred through the rain. For the first time, Luca didn't feel like the man in control. He felt human, terrified of losing someone again. He took her to a safe house on the outskirts of town, a small cabin hidden behind tall cypress trees. Inside, Amara sank into a chair, trembling. Luca knelt in front of her. You're safe here. They won't find you. She looked at him, eyes sharp through the tears. You keep saying that like it's true. He hesitated. I'll make it true. You can't, she whispered. You live in a world built on fear and control. But I don't belong there. He reached for her hand. You belong wherever your heart chooses to be. For a moment, the silence between them thickened, charged, trembling, undeniable. She didn't pull away. Later that night, as the storm raged outside, Luca sat by the fire, lost in thought. Amara emerged from the bedroom, wrapped in a blanket. Couldn't sleep, she asked softly. Never could, he admitted. She sat beside him. The firelight danced across his face, softening the hardness in his eyes. He turned to her. You were right, about the emptiness. I built an empire because I thought it would fill the hole Isabella left. But power doesn't fill anything, it just drowns the silence. Amara studied him, her heart tightening. You don't have to drown anymore, Luca. He looked at her, voice low. And what if I pull you under with me? Then I'll teach you how to swim. That broke something in him. He leaned forward slowly, as if afraid she might disappear, and their lips met. The kiss wasn't rushed nor desperate. It was quiet, reverent, and fragile, like a prayer said in the dark. For the first time in years, Luca Moretti felt clean. They sat in silence the next morning, sunlight spilling through the curtains. The storm had passed, but danger hadn't. Marco arrived early, face grim. They hit another of our warehouses last night. It's not random, they're sending a message. Amara looked up. Because of me. Luca shook his head. No, because of me. They're trying to make me choose between the man I was and the man you make me want to be. Marco's gaze flicked between them. Then you already know what you have to do. Luca nodded slowly. It ends tonight. Amara rose. What does that mean? He looked at her, eyes filled with something between sorrow and resolve. It means I'm going to finish this, so you and Sophia can live free. Amara's chest tightened. Don't you dare make this about sacrifice. That's not love, Luca. That's guilt. He stepped closer, cupping her face. Maybe. But if I don't do this, the blood never stops. Her tears broke free. Then come back to me when it's done. I will, he whispered. I promise. And then he was gone. Night fell over the docks. The wind carried the scent of salt and gunpowder. Luca stood alone among the shipping containers, waiting. From the shadows, his rival emerged, Vittorio Renzetti, the serpent from Luca's past. Well, well, Vittorio sneered. The great Luca Moretti, hiding behind a waitress and a child. How poetic. You made your point, Luca said evenly. You want me, not them. Vittorio grinned. Always noble when it's convenient. He gestured, and armed men stepped from the dark. But nobility doesn't win wars. Gunfire erupted. Luca dove for cover, returning fire. Metal sparked, crates splintered. His men, loyal but outnumbered, fought fiercely. One by one, the echoes faded until only two remained standing. Luca and Vittorio. You should have stayed gone, Vittorio spat, reloading. You're not the king anymore. Then kill me, Luca said, stepping closer. But the girl stays out of it. Vittorio raised his gun, and a shot rang out. But it wasn't from him. He fell to his knees, blood spreading across his chest. Behind him stood Marco, weapon smoking. It's over, Marco said. Luca exhaled shakily. No, it's only just beginning. When Luca returned to the cabin at dawn, the light was pale, almost ghostly. He found Amara asleep on the couch, Sophia curled against her chest. Marco had brought the girl there after the danger subsided. For a moment, Luca simply stood there, watching them. His heart felt heavier and lighter all at once. He knelt beside them, brushing a strand of hair from Amara's face. Her eyes fluttered open. You came back, she whispered. I told you I would. Sophia stirred, blinking. Papa. He smiled. Hey, Piccola. Amara reached for his hand. Is it over? Luca nodded slowly. The men who wanted to hurt us, they're gone. But I'm done too. No more business. No more blood. She searched his eyes, seeing the truth there. So what now? He looked around the small cabin, sunlight spilling over the worn floorboards, Sophia's crayons scattered on the table, Amara's heartbeat still trembling under his palm. Now, he said softly, we start again. The lake shimmered beneath the early morning sun. Mist drifted low over the water like soft breath. For the first time in years, Luca Moretti stood barefoot on the wooden pier, not as a man of power, but simply as a father. Sophia laughed as she tossed pebbles into the water. Her giggles echoed like music, the kind that had been missing from his home for too long. Behind them, Amara stood by the cabin window watching, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. She couldn't help but smile. The world felt new again. Fragile but new. When Luca joined her inside, the scent of coffee mingled with sunlight and quiet peace. She handed him a mug. You're late, she teased softly. He smirked faintly. The lake kept us busy. Did Sophia beat you at stone skipping again? She cheats, he said with mock seriousness. Amara laughed, a sound he didn't know he needed until now. They sat at the small table. For a moment, it almost felt ordinary. No bodyguards, no orders, no secrets. Just two people who had survived the storm and didn't quite know what came next. You know, Amara said after a long silence, you're different when you're around her. He looked at her. Around Sophia? She nodded. You smile without thinking. You listen. You become soft. He chuckled quietly. Soft isn't a word people use for me. It's the word she'll use when she grows up, Amara said gently. And that's what matters. Luca stared into his cup. I spent years keeping her away from the world because I thought protection meant control. But I think all she really needed was warmth. Amara reached out, covering his hand with hers. And now she has it. His gaze lifted to meet hers. Thanks to you. Their eyes lingered, a silent current passing between them, too strong to name. Later that day, while Sophia napped, Luca stood outside repairing the fence, sleeves rolled up. Amara brought him lemonade, pretending not to stare at the quiet strength in the way he worked. She had seen him as many things, cold, commanding, wounded. But this version was new, gentle, human. Still, part of her feared the peace couldn't last. When he paused, she handed him the glass. You're not built for retirement, you know. He smiled. You think I miss the old life? I think, she said carefully, men like you never stop looking over their shoulder. Luca's expression darkened. Maybe you're right, but I'm trying. Trying is enough, she said softly. For now. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a heartbeat it felt like confession. I don't deserve any of this, he murmured. Not after the things I've done. Amara stepped closer. You don't have to deserve love, Luca. You just have to choose it. The words hung between them like sunlight through dust. He swallowed hard, as though the truth itself hurt. Then I choose it. I choose you. Amara's breath caught. Don't say things you can't keep. He set down the hammer, taking her hand. I've broken promises before, Amara. I won't break this one. And for the first time since she met him, she believed him. The days turned into weeks. Slowly, the three of them fell into rhythm. Sophia helped Amara in the kitchen, flour dusting her nose. Luca would read her bedtime stories in broken Italian, his once harsh voice softened by laughter. Neighbors from the nearby town began to appear, curious but kind, bringing bread, offering conversation. No one knew Luca's past. They just saw a quiet man raising his daughter with a warm-hearted woman by his side. For Amara, it was surreal. Sometimes she'd wake in the night, panic flooding her, afraid it had all been a dream. Then she'd hear Sophia's soft breathing from the next room, and Luca's low murmur as he worked late by the fire. Reality felt sweeter than she ever dared hope. One morning, the mail arrived, and with it, a letter sealed in black wax. Luca froze when he saw it. Amara noticed. "What is it?" He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sentence. "You can leave the life, but the life never leaves you." Her heart dropped. "Is it them again?" He nodded grimly. "An old syndicate. They're testing me, seeing if I'll come back." "Then don't," she said firmly. "I won't," he promised. "Not this time." But that night, she found him sitting on the porch, staring into the darkness, a gun on the table beside him. "You're thinking about fighting again," she said quietly. He didn't look at her. "If they come, I have to be ready." She stepped closer. "No. If they come, we face it together. But you're not going back to that man, Luca." He turned to her, his voice barely above a whisper. "How do you keep believing in me?" "Because someone has to," she said simply. "And because I've seen the man you are with Sophia, the man you could be forever if you let yourself." He looked at her, eyes burning with a mix of love and shame. "You make me want to be that man." "Then be him," she whispered. And she kissed him, not out of passion, but out of defiance. A promise sealed against the ghosts of his past. A week later, a black car pulled up near the cabin. Luca's body stiffened instantly. But when the door opened, it wasn't an enemy. It was Father Matteo, the priest who had once baptized Sophia. "Luca," the priest greeted. "It's been years." "Too many," Luca replied, shaking his hand. Matteo's kind eyes shifted to Amara and Sophia. "And this must be the miracle I heard about." Sophia giggled. "Papa says she's an angel." Amara flushed. "I wouldn't go that far." The priest chuckled softly. "He's right, you know. Some angels don't have wings. They arrive when a man finally puts down his sword." He turned to Luca. "I hear you've left the business. That takes courage." Luca nodded slowly. "It takes faith. Hers mostly." Matteo smiled. "Then perhaps it's time you start forgiving yourself." After he left, Luca sat quietly, staring at his reflection in the window. "Do you think forgiveness is possible?" he asked. Amara slipped her hand into his. "It already started the day you chose peace." That evening, they had dinner by candlelight. Sophia insisted they say grace, something Amara had taught her. Luca bowed his head awkwardly, still learning the rhythm of quiet faith. "Thank you," Sophia prayed, "for Papa and Miss Amara and pancakes and no more scary men." Luca opened his eyes, smiling faintly. Amara met his gaze across the table. "Out of the mouths of babes," she murmured. He chuckled. "She's wiser than both of us." After dinner, they sat by the fire. Sophia fell asleep between them, her small hands in theirs. The room glowed with warmth, the kind of warmth that can only exist when pain has finally found its place in memory. Luca looked at Amara, eyes filled with quiet gratitude. "You gave me back my life." She shook her head. "No, Luca, you gave it to yourself. I just reminded you it was still there." He leaned closer, brushing his lips against her forehead. "Either way, I don't ever want to lose this." "You won't," she whispered, "as long as you keep choosing it." Weeks later, spring arrived. The wildflowers by the lake bloomed in a riot of colors. One morning, Luca took Sophia and Amara out for a picnic. The air was sweet with honeysuckle, the sky a perfect blue. As Sophia chased butterflies, Luca turned to Amara, heart racing. "I was going to wait," he began, pulling something from his pocket. "But life's taught me that waiting only steals the moments we might have cherished." He opened his hand. Inside was a simple gold ring. Amara's breath caught. "Luca," he smiled gently. "You came into my world when it was nothing but ruin. You gave Sophia back her laughter. You gave me back my soul. So if you'll have me, not the man I was, but the man I'm becoming, I'd be honored to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you." Her eyes filled with tears. "You already do." Sophia turned just in time to see him slip the ring on Amara's finger. She squealed in delight, clapping. "Does that mean I get a mommy now?" Luca and Amara laughed, pulling her into their arms. "Yes, sweetheart," Amara whispered, hugging her close. "It means that exactly." As the sun set over the lake, Luca looked out across the golden water, Amara's head resting on his shoulder, Sophia curled in his lap. He thought of the man he used to be, the shadow that haunted his own empire, and of the man sitting here now, whose world fit within the arms of two people. For the first time in a lifetime, he wasn't afraid of tomorrow, because the heart, once broken, had remembered how to love. And this time it would never forget. The morning sky over Lake Garda glowed like soft gold, stretching over the still water where mist drifted like memory. The Moretti villa, once a fortress, was alive again, filled with laughter, music, and sunlight. Today, the walls that once held secrets would witness something new. Today, Luca Moretti was getting married. Amara stood before the mirror in her modest white dress, her hands trembling slightly. It wasn't a grand gown, not like the silk and lace of magazines, but it was hers, soft and simple, adorned with small pearls along the waist that Sophia had helped sew on. Tasha, now her maid of honor, smiled behind her. "You look like peace itself." Amara laughed nervously. "I look terrified." "That's what peace looks like sometimes," Tasha teased, pinning a curl into place. "A little terrified, a little hopeful." Amara exhaled, staring at her reflection. "I never thought my story would lead here." "You mean from waitress to mafia boss's bride?" Amara chuckled. "When you put it that way, it sounds insane. But beautiful," Tasha said gently. "Because you didn't just change his world, you healed it." Amara blinked back tears. "We healed each other." Outside, the sound of the violin began, soft and tender, carrying across the lake breeze. It was time. Down by the shore, Luca adjusted his tie, black, simple, elegant. Marco stood beside him, grinning. "You nervous, boss?" Luca smirked. "You've seen me face men with machine guns, Marco. I've never been this nervous." "That's how you know it's real," Marco said. Luca's gaze drifted toward the villa, where the first guests were gathering. Not politicians, not crime lords, but people. Ordinary people. The bakery owner from town. Father Matteo. Neighbors who had helped rebuild his life one kindness at a time. He had told them the truth weeks ago, confessed who he'd been, what he'd done. Some had walked away, but most had stayed, and that had meant everything. Now, as the music swelled, Luca saw her. Amara walked toward him, arm in arm with Tasha. Sunlight kissed her brown skin, her eyes bright as hope itself. For a moment, he forgot how to breathe. Sophia walked just ahead, sprinkling flower petals with such focus that everyone smiled. Her curls bounced in rhythm with the music. When Amara reached him, Luca took her hand, steady, reverent, almost trembling. "You're the bravest woman I've ever met," he whispered. "And you," she replied softly, "are finally the man you were meant to be." Father Matteo smiled as he began. "We stand here not to erase the past, but to honor how love transforms it." The wind danced across the lake, rustling the petals laid down the aisle. "Luca Moretti," the priest said, "do you take Amara Johnson to be your wife, to cherish, protect, and grow beside, forsaking the shadows that once bound you?" Luca's throat tightened. "I do. And I swear, on every piece of the man I was, that I will spend the rest of my life becoming worthy of her faith in me." Amara's eyes glistened. "Amara Johnson," Father Matteo continued, "do you take Luca Moretti, not the legend, not the name, but the man, to be your husband, and to walk beside him as he rebuilds his life in love?" She smiled through tears. "I do, because every heart deserves a home, and mine found one in him." Sophia tugged at Matteo's robe, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear. "You forgot my part." Laughter rippled through the guests. The priest chuckled. "Ah, yes. Sophia, would you like to bless your parents?" Sophia grinned and nodded solemnly. "I bless Papa and Mommy because they make pancakes together and never let me feel alone." Even Father Matteo's voice cracked as the crowd wiped their eyes. Luca lifted Sophia into his arms, kissing her forehead. "You'll always be our little angel, Piccola." Then he turned back to Amara, eyes shining. Forever. When their lips met, the wind seemed to still. It wasn't the kiss of a fairy tale. It was deeper, earned, forged in fire, healed in forgiveness. Around them, applause rose, laughter spilled, and Sophia danced in the petals falling from the trees. Luca rested his forehead against Amara's. "You've given me something I thought was gone." "What's that?" she whispered. "Tomorrow. The reception took place under strings of golden lights strung between olive trees. Long tables lined the lawn, overflowing with food, laughter, and life. The air smelled of roasted herbs and lemon tarts. The music was lively, the kind that made even the shyest guests sway. Amara sat with Sophia on her lap as Luca made a toast. "When I was a younger man," he began, "I believed power could build peace. But power built walls. And love." He glanced at Amara. "Love tore them down. I lost my way once, but this woman and this little girl brought me home." He raised his glass. "To family, the one we make, not the one we're born into." Everyone cheered. Amara looked at him, heart swelling. For all his strength, his truest power was this, the courage to change. As the sun dipped low, Luca offered his hand. "Dance with me." She smiled. "You dance." "I'm learning," he said. They moved slowly to the soft melody of a cello. His hand rested against her back, hers on his shoulder. "Remember the first night we met?" she murmured. "I remember a frightened waitress standing up to a man everyone else avoided," he said softly. "And a lonely father who didn't know he was ready to live again," she added. He smiled. "You gave me that chance." The song faded, but they didn't stop swaying. When the guests had gone and the lights glimmered faintly against the lake, Amara stood on the balcony in her simple white dress, watching the stars reflect in the water. Luca joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. "Do you ever think about how strange life is?" she asked quietly. "How two worlds like ours ever collided?" He kissed her temple. "Maybe it wasn't strange. Maybe it was fate refusing to let us stay broken." She turned to face him. "Do you believe in fate?" "I do now," he said. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a deed. She frowned. "What's this?" "Our restaurant," he said with a grin. "Well, your restaurant. I bought La Valura. You always said food brings people together. I thought we could rebuild it. Honest this time." Her jaw dropped. "Luca," he cupped her face gently. "It's time we build something new, something Sophia can be proud of." Tears welled in her eyes. "I love you. And I," he said softly, "will spend the rest of my life proving it." They kissed again, framed by moonlight, two souls who had walked through fire and found grace on the other side. La Valura by the lake opened to the public exactly a year after their wedding. The restaurant was small but always full. Laughter spilled out every evening. Luca worked the garden, Amara ran the kitchen, and Sophia served water to guests with the authority of a queen. Their story had spread quietly, not of a mafia boss and a waitress, but of a man who traded power for peace, and the woman who taught him love. That evening, as twilight bathed the lake in rose-gold light, Amara stepped out onto the deck, her apron still dusted with flour. Luca approached, holding 3 plates of tiramisu, for the chef and her apprentices. Sophia giggled. "Papa, you mean me?" He laughed. "Who else?" They sat together, feet dangling above the lake, eating dessert while fireflies blinked around them. Sophia leaned against Amara's arm. "Mommy." "Yes, baby." "Do you think Mommy's smile is like Grandma's?" Amara looked at Luca. He smiled softly. Even brighter. The child grinned. "Then we're all home now." And as the stars shimmered over the water, Luca Moretti finally believed her. For in that moment, surrounded by laughter, forgiveness, and love, the man who once ruled the underworld realized that heaven was never far away. It had been waiting all along, right here beside the lake. The end.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.